Hello and welcome to the Eco-Modernist Channel Live. I'm Carl Pauls. I'm here with Gabe Ignetti, Chris Bergen, and our special guest, Guido Nunez Mujica, he's going to speak with us today about the situation in Europe concerning nuclear power. Currently, Guido is the head of data science at the Anthropocene Institute. His work has been featured in multiple publications, including Nature and Wired magazines. Welcome, Guido.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. I'm super excited to be back.
It is great to see you. The world is a chaotic place. Nuclear energy in America looks to be making progress, hopeful progress, but we're always eager to hear what other opportunities are going to be like. So, what is the case for nuclear in Europe? What's going on?
A lot of things, I remember in May, for, to tell you an example, at least two countries, um, Denmark amongst them, started either studying their Denmark and Belgium. In Denmark, there are multiple layers to the moratorium. One of them went away, and in Belgium, they did drop the moratorium. They are having other problems right now to keep the oldest two nuclear power plants alive. But they got rid of the moratorium at the legal level. Also, Germany committed to not to oppose European nuclear projects at the European Commission level, which is big because Germany has been really a thorn on our side every time that someone else tries to do something about nuclear power. They're very militant. I don't think that the situation really has changed a lot in Germany, despite the change of government, because, coalitions.
Mhm.
But at least they have committed to stop acting outside of Europe. They are also trying safe with fusion. Uh, but in general, the fact that now, because of the energy taxonomy in Europe, has agreed that nuclear is a low carbon, clean sort of energy, that's going to change things. The only country that opposed was Austria, and they lost the lawsuit as recently as less than a month ago, I think.
Mhm.
So there made lots of changes, and people who were pretty well informed until 6 months ago, if they haven't been following the newest developments, they are not as not as well, not as up to date. Really, situation is changing almost by the minute, and so this is a great subject to explore.
Unfortunately, I think we saw the destruction of several of the cooling towers for the decommissioned reactors and nuclear plants in Germany. It's disheartening to see that, but I take there's some progress that Germany is no longer suing its neighbors, pressing France, for example, to shut down reactors that could be operated safely. It's a time of tumult. Thanks for catching us up on some of this stuff. It's going to be a long path ahead of us to see the return of nuclear in Europe. What what hope do you have for the situation there?
My hope right now it's looking north to Finland and Sweden. In in Finland, the Finnish Greens are very enthusiastic supporters of nuclear, and in Sweden, the current government got rid of some of the um, special taxation rules that applied to nuclear and that made it uncompetitive. And they are showing leadership. The government in Sweden is also starting to talk about funding some nuclear projects, and they have been also trying to analyze what were the true consequences of shutting down two of their nuclear power plants. So they already have. They also have some SMR companies. Company called Blikala, which works on lead cooled reactors, comes to mind. Um, I was able to visit their offices, and when you go, a little funny thing that's really not that relevant, but it's cute detail. When you go to their offices, there is a shovel, and you're like, why on earth there's a shovel here? Turns out that the deputy prime minister, who's also the minister of energy, used that shovel to break ground. So that is the level of governmental support that they have. You know that they do have markets, but also they have a strong belief in that the government should be involved in the building industrial policy and in making sure electricity remains plenty of and affordable. It's not it's not that they don't have a market, but market is not king or emperor. So and a lot of Europe is like that to different degrees. So it's really encouraging that they are showing leadership and leading the way along with the fence. When I was in Finland, I was able to visit the site for Olkiluoto, where they have three nuclear power plants, including the last huge one that they started about 3 years ago now. And I also met representatives for um, a very interesting company that wants to build reactors that are very simple because they are not designed to generate electricity. They're just dealing with heat. So for district heating and industrial heating applications, and since they have the complexity of the reactors is much less, they are thinking about manufacturing the reactors, which you know that yet we're not able to, even the SMRs that we have right now, they are not able to be mass manufactured. So I'm very curious to see if you finally come up with a company that can mass manufacture devices. What's going to do that to the prices once economics of scale start kicking in?
I'm very hopeful. And let me double check. How's my sound? I changed something. Hopefully, it sounds better.
A little wet. It's all right.
Okay. Well, if it sounds better, that's better. But so to get back on topic, the economies of scale is incredibly important. We have seen China's enormous progress in nuclear deployments and the cost trending gradually downward. This is repeated the historical fact of France's massive build out of nuclear, and again the economies of scale benefiting the cost of power. If anyone is able to do it, I have to disclaim that while I'm in the nuclear industry and I can't say that my company is the only one trying to do something like this. So I'm very hopeful that across the American nuclear startup industry, we find someone who is able to bring an economy of scale, especially with all the demand that we're getting. Um, but in Europe, we have such centers of expertise in France, in Finland. I would be incredibly impressed and very, very hopeful if either of those countries are able to begin to build with an economy of scale to mass produce SMRs or 300 megawatts would be a really great size, hopefully, or even bigger. The traditional build outs were gigawatt reactors, but continuing to press and build supports a thriving commercial construction support industry, and that's one of the very important factors that I hope to see as these nuclear startups really start to come online. Do you have any reflections on that? Like anything hopeful in terms of vendors or service or construction companies that have really sprung up?
Um, uh, Not really. My expertise is mostly
Mhm.
the way I explain my work is mostly around nuclear technology rather than about the technology itself. Since I'm
Mhm.
not an engineer, so but I do know that there are companies working on simpler reactor designs that hopefully could be mass manufacturers.
Wonderful. Chris, you have a question.
Yeah, it seems like recently the companies which are gaining ground in some way, uh, they're chasing more than one income. They're trying to have a second income, whether it's process heat on the side or having medical isotopes. Copenhagen Atomics is looking at just making really, really good salt and putting that in. I think Finland is looking at their storage as well as district heating. Uh, do you think or do you have the impression that companies are somewhat doomed? I think I heard Multex has gone out. Are they doomed if if they limit themselves to a single income stream?
No, I don't think so because it depends exactly of what is the opportunity. If they're only doing electricity, but they happen to be the in a bid and they are the design that then is going to be used to uh, reconvert the grid of a specific country, say a conversion from coal sites to nuclear sites, I think this will be enough for any company to remain in business if it's properly run and the technology is sound. So it all depends on exactly what's a business model. But side income never hurts. And I just remember the name of the Finnish company that does reactors that are simplified because they're dealing with the heat rather than so they mechanically they are a lot simpler. It's called stable energy.
Okay, stable. Okay.
Yeah.
Gabe or Chris, if you have any follow ups on this topic, I can't speculate, so go ahead.
I'll mention our guest. I think it was last week, talking about corn stalks and cellulose. He mentioned price point was very important. So if for some reason natural gas should drop 20 or 30% in price, say things are, say Russia and Ukraine find peace, and 6 months later the price of natural gas is opened up. OPEC opens up its natural gas as well as other places, and that if natural gas prices drop and then electricity prices drop with it, that means nuclear would have to operate potentially at a loss right at the time that nuclear is trying to get these small modular reactors off the ground. And that could be worldwide, which is part of the business model, I realize. But do you know of any governments or organizations talking about subsidies based on price levels, pricing, or any other subsidies?
Well, that is part of the whole discussion about the green taxonomy
Mm-hmm.
because some companies are will benefit from fiscal incentives and other benefits that solar and wind have access to. But if nuclear now qualifying for as a clean source of energy, official in taxonomy, makes investment in these areas a lot more attractive. And I'm not as optimistic in terms of natural gas prices going down, because even if there is peace and there's more supply in the market, we have the physical fact that the pipeline is no longer working. It's no longer transporting the gas. So then that's going to take a while to fix.
Yeah.
And considering for some reason that I don't quite understand related to American politics, I don't expect a lot of stability in the market for the next 3 years.
Where America is concerned, I think that's a safe bet. It is, I'm very hopeful that nuclear will continue to be competitive against natural gas. We have enormous off market, off grid sources of generation in order to support these AI data centers, like the Grok, the XAI data center in Tennessee is famously quite quite noticeable by the local communities, and the level of noise and sound and the odor from the gas turbines there is very noticeable from that community. Yet natural gas was considered, a potential clean energy source, and in fact, and remind me if I'm incorrect, wasn't it qualified as a sustainable energy source by Europe? And is that going to cause a problem in the competitive landscape?
Don't remember the details, but I do know that it was discussed, and the reasoning was compared to coal. But this specific question, I don't know because
Yeah.
this is very, very detailed. These are very detailed negotiations that have been
Yeah.
going on for years,
Mm-hmm.
and even these are for lawyers, and I am not one.
Yeah. Taken. Yeah. Thank you.
But
Go ahead.
but something else that I am working on, despite not being a lawyer, and it's interesting, is the notion of carbon credits, because the purpose of carbon credits is exactly to provide an additional source of revenue to a set of technologies, companies, and countries that are, quote, doing the right thing, quote, when it comes to carbon emissions. But right now, that's not working that way for nuclear. And for the last year or so, I have been writing reports. We released a white paper about the idea, and I have been to multiple international conferences, um, sharing the document when people who might benefit from it, with policymakers. And I have had meetings with people in Africa, in Europe as well, because this is attractive to the companies. And it's something that can be fixed, that could be fixed. Because currently, the situation is that if magically tomorrow we had manufactured SMRs that are 10x less, and they will be super easy to deploy. If regulations don't change, you could completely decarbonize a country, and the company that's doing this gets no benefit from this. So that's an idea we did put out there. Starting at the end of last year, I started talking about it in conferences. And as I told you, we released a white paper. Now we're working with IAEA, the International Agency of Atomic Energy, in more detailed modeling about the economics of this. But 3 days ago, Constellation announced that they were going to issue carbon offset certificates, and they partnered with Expansive, which is a platform that certifies and provide this for voluntary carbon exchanges. So I think that this idea could really be a game changer. We ran the economics, and depending on the price of the ton of carbon and how much coal your grid has and the size of the plant, a plant like Rupur in Bangladesh could avoid the emission of 15 million tons of CO2 if it replaces generation by coal, and the Bangladeshis do have a lot of coal in the grid. And depending on the price of the ton, north of $1 billion in income from trading these the certificates from this carbon savings, so to speak. Of course, this is. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say that's really hopeful because it is, given the different opportunities to develop energy in the global south, coal is still very attractive. There's still too little infrastructure, and so this kind of a investment is absolutely welcome. And the carbon credits for to incentivize nuclear over coal is really fantastic. And I think Gabe has a question.
Yeah, mentioned the carbon credits, but like gas coming low. You hear me good?
You're better closer.
You
Okay,
cut up a bit.
because I'm practically kissing it. Hang on.
What would kiss it and ask the question.
Okay, yeah. Okay. All right. So these carbon credits, gas would come in very low, but yet it's in terms of methane, it is pretty bad stuff. Is that accounted for?
No, we're just counting carbon and not methane. So because this is just an introduction to the idea and the simplest possible version, future versions probably will have to deal with that kind of detail because I know that methane has a lasting power. That's it's still a lot more than other greenhouse gases.
I got sorry, go ahead.
One last comment on this. Until last week, I would have told you, well, I'm very hopeful about this because the Africans are interested. I have been at the middle of the year COP meeting in Bonn, and people are open to the idea. But this week I can tell you, yeah, Constellation already start doing it. So I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna start telling people like this is not in the sky. It can be done. The details are still fuzzy because it's a very new initiative and lots of people, and especially when you're dealing with UN regulation and negotiations that can and will take quite a while. But if this happens, it really could change completely the economics for nuclear in countries that at this point cannot afford it in a realistic way, or if they can afford it, it's a commitment that it's really a sacrifice because it means that the money is not used on other things. Countries like Bangladesh are in that situation. And Ethiopia just announced, actually, while I was at the African Climate Summit, they announced that they want to build large nuclear power plant. I think on the same order of magnitude of generation than Diablo Canyon. I don't remember the exact nameplate capacity, but they're about there. And of course, they're dealing with the Russians, but also to have this additional revenue might be able to create enough demand so American and European companies can become more competitive with what is Rosatom is currently doing.
I I'm really happy to know that you're continuing to be an international advocate, and especially as you have such a great experience in America and talking to people of all different backgrounds. This is a question from the chat. Are there any particular points about nuclear that you found most surprising or get the most traction on moving the needle with skeptical audiences?
Yes, and no, mm, I'm the director of the science here, and currently the ultimate goal of our research is to shift the conversation around nuclear in terms, not only in economic terms, but also by making tangible some things that most people don't think about. And even I include myself on this because e- even when I was a baby nuclear advocate, the phase where you are, I don't like this, but we need to be pragmatic, and this is the solution, and it has problems. But even when I was there and I was advocating and volunteering, doing things to promote nuclear power, these are considerations that did not enter into my mind. And I think they're very important. And that's why we're trying to move away from only cost debates, which there is a lot to do there. If you see the cost analysis of the Australians are just completely insane. They're assuming that new plants will cost even more than Vogel. But that's another branch we don't want to go into, at least on this podcast. So yeah, I want to go beyond the economics arguments, even if the final argument will still be economic. And we started trying to measure which other benefits uh, can nuclear power have. Like even if you are very reluctant or you're a climate change denialist or skeptic, what could persuade you to change your mind? And the first one and the most obvious one is health. When you have coal, statistically, and this is very well documented in the literature, you kill quite a bit of people. It's about 25 people per terawatt hour of coal, of generation by coal. But it's not only the people who die, it's also the people who end up in the hospital with a serious condition or the thousands and thousands of people that end up with a little cough, a little bit of pulmonary inflammation, and all sort of minor conditions that still affect the quality of life and the productivity of these people in the economy, that makes children unable to go class because their asthma is really bad that day, you name it. So there is a human component here as well that is often ignored. And I think that when I speak about these subjects, people are receptive, because the question you always see in an argument is, would you want to live next to a nuclear power plant? And when you actually ask that question to the people who are living around or next to a nuclear power plant, the answer is always, heck yeah, because they know how important plants are for the economics of the communities that are near them. So talking about this is good. If I'm talking to someone who's more concerned about either about China rising or about international politics, I tell them that the sooner that not only that we can stop using fossil fuels, because for better or for worse, even if we have very aggressive decarbonization policies, there are still many processes that will require them. But we can decrease that a lot. I tell them the sooner that we can get these prices to be a little bit less volatile, because there is a demand that is expected, because it's wrong. There are other processes that are not as mercurial as transportation or electricity, in terms of what people do when they are in a bad or in a good economic situation, because this is the ultimate driver of prices. The better will be for everyone in this world, not only for the people who have to buy these fuels, but for the people who live in nations where there is an autocrat benefiting insanely from these prices. So that type of arguments around the benefits from nuclear, in my opinion, are successful. If you're talking to someone whose politics are on the left, I will definitely be speaking about the other environmental damage that coal power plants cause, which is completely ignored. And this is heavy metals. You know, when coal is extracted, it's not pure coal. There's no such thing. It's a mineral that's inside the earth, and it will have all sorts of trace amounts of lead, arsenic, mercury, cadmium, among others. And we have found also in the literature ways to estimate the heavy metals that are that are released to the environment when you used to have a nuclear power plant, and you stop using them because you're afraid of nuclear cooties, and now you're using more coal. Well, we can quantify that, and we did it in a recent report that we have for Germany, and also the kind of nuclear of jobs that nuclear power plants can create. That's a job that cannot be outsourced. That's often going to be a unionized job, and that's a very well paying job in comparison with many others. When you speak with those arguments, I think that in many cases you will not change the stance of that person, but you will make them think, and sometimes that's enough.
I appreciate it, and I want to follow up on that. The difference between coal and nuclear it is that philosophy of the medical intervention. You can do nothing, and your patient can die, or you can choose one energy source that is millions of times more energy efficient. And so all of the industrial activity around nuclear is literally a million times less heavy metals, infinitesimally small amounts of carbon compared to coal. And it is simply based on that different scale of energy density. Chris, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Yeah, something you said, Guido, reminded me that a few years ago I came to a slow realization that what people think matters, but what's more can be more important is what industry wants to do. Feels like if industry is ready to pull, the proverbial trigger and spend money to do something, uh, usually people don't try to stop it, or even if they try to stop it, many times they fail to stop it. So it was more important to get industry to be pro-nuclear than to get masses of people individually pro-nuclear. It's still important to have people and have the social contract, so to speak, in your favor. But in many ways, I think people underestimate how important industry is, and for industry to have a purpose in using nuclear. I don't know. That's my opinion. Have you found something similar like that, or do you disagree?
I agree with you partially.
Okay.
I think it's super important, and in cases like data centers, um, taken as a fait accompli, like this is what's driving AI. AI is gonna grow. We have to accept that fact, and we have to deal with the fact that we don't have enough electricity. We need to build more. In that case, yes, it's correct. But that's only correct because we mostly live in societies where nuclear is not really that controversial. When we have a lot of media and a lot of politicians who haven't gotten the memo and are still acting like it's 1975 or 1982.
Yes.
But when you have a population that is adamant that we don't want this, or even a large fraction, or even necessarily a minority, when you being anti-nuclear is a core value, then it doesn't matter what the industry says. And the best proof of that is Germany. If there is a place where companies will be delighted to have those reactors brought back, and where the companies understand very clearly that with this price of electricity being what they are in Germany, some of them are shutting down plants, are firing people, and all of them are worried. Even with the industrials very loud and clearly saying, this is what we need, this is what we must do, the government still doesn't follow. So the way I will phrase my agreement is, if you have some base necessary conditions, then yes, industry support is it's key. It's gonna make or break your plans, but there are situations in which you can have that and still not to have any traction.
I see a question
But the
from
good
Gabe.
news,
Oh, sorry.
but the good news is that the change in public perception is going so fast. I'm completely, uh, what would be the word? I'm surprised and by the fact that public perception is it's really changing.
The
I
last
just
3 years, yes, very, very quickly.
Yeah, in my own experience, I saw something like that about gay marriage, and it was, in less than 5 years, most Americans went from absolutely not to, of course, I want my uncle to marry. Um, that was a huge cultural change. It was very fast. I remember being surprised of how fast it went. And I think this is even faster.
Gabe, did you have something?
Yeah, yeah. A couple of one is an observation and a question.
A little louder if you can.
Oh, okay. Still? Wow.
Yes.
Okay. Oh my God. This is ridiculous. I don't know. We never had that problem. Full bang here. Get her here. Better now.
Maybe you can back off just a tiny bit now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I just
Oh,
okay.
well
So
now, okay, we'll work on this. Turn it down about 10% because you're clipping.
okay. All right. How am I doing?
Try now.
Hello.
Okay,
Okay.
great.
Okay. Good.
Get a little closer because you're
All
not
right.
clipping, but you're still quiet. All right.
I never had all these problems. Anyhow, okay, so here's the thing, right? And it's kind of a rhetorical question. I mean, how could someone have core values centered around a technology that's not a weapon? Okay, and I don't know if you point that out to people and ask them that, but it puzzles me because I mean, just that just doesn't make sense. Technology just evolves and it gets better and better and better. Now, here's the next thing is the question is, uh, did the anti-nukers in Europe, how much clout did they have? Are they still ready to put their bodies on the line? And could they really shake things up if Germany was to move towards the nuclear?
The problem, the problem is that the Greens are in coalition, and you know how notoriously complex European coalitions sometimes are, and they are very um, you might as well call them fundamentalist anti-nuclears, because not even because the Green Party in Finland changed their mind, not even because people like the British Prime Minister now have made nuclear center of their energy policy. Not even that will change their attitude. And when you start digging in, you realize that Germany is a very special case. And Taiwan is on a similar boat in which their popular culture and the part of what people quote, what they think they know about nuclear is just it's something that's been there since the birth, and it continues in the background all the time. Some very popular books in Germany, like the kind of thing that every child reads at one point of their childhood, either because they like it or because it's a required reading and for some of the classes. is this awful book called The Cloud.
Mm.
I learned about it recently.
Devolk.
And yes, and the book is super dramatic, and it's this little girl who loses his brother to radiation because there was an accident that kills thousands of people. She's left an orphan. It it's almost Dickensian in the amount of tragedy and misery that this poor girl has to go through. Oh, and you know, these the kind of emotions that these books creates in children who are still growing up and end up maybe slightly traumatized by the book. That is something that I haven't seen anywhere else. Uh, or you have places like Taiwan in which nuclear is that's starting to change. That is started to change. But in the case of Taiwan, nuclear is seen as the old ruling party that was a dictatorship for many years, the Kuomintang. The Chinese dissidents that end up in power there, and they had a very simple and straightforward industrial policy. We're going to build more nuclear power plants. Since we're not a democracy, we don't care about your precious little feelings. We don't care about the environment. This is what we want to do, and this is what will be done, and that's what happened. So when democracy comes, there is this completely intrinsic link of nuclear power, dictatorship, and authoritarianism, just because of the way that it was implemented. And that's Taiwan is also a hard case. That's a place where a lot of the arguments, the normal arguments that we're trying to use, might work on an intellectual level, but we humans are very complex animals, and I don't think I have to tell any of you how misguided it is to try to change someone's mind just on the fact you have to add emotions in, especially in places like that where there is an undeniable link between the nuclear power infrastructure and a government that wasn't precisely popular for many years. So yeah, in a case like Taiwan, some more cultural change, especially in the opposition parties, needs to happen because they are also in an unique, on a particularly bad situation, depending on daily shipments of coal and natural gas that could be interrupted at any moment, leaving them extremely vulnerable. But if they had more nuclear power, they will not be as concerned because as long as you get a shipment every 18 months of uranium arriving to your country, fine.
And it's such a critical national security issue for Taiwan. I'm really surprised one of our chatters says that it's essentially a political party issue in Taiwan where one of the parties is not going to return Taiwan to nuclear, and yet they're facing a lot of geopolitical pressure. So it seems kind of crazy to me that it is a politicized issue there.
Yeah, but you know, all wounds still leave scars.
Mm-hmm.
The interesting part, going back to Europe, is that the reverse is not true. In Spain, the nuclear power program was brought by the party that was that was in the alliance that brought democracy to Spain after Franco died. and it's the Partido Socialista Obrero Español, so Socialist Workers' Party of Spain.
Mm.
Not very right wing, right? So they had this president, Felipe González, who is on paper, he's on the record supportive of nuclear. Why? Because it was him, the one who decided that Spanish need to have nuclear power. And the current situation is that his own party is completely against nuclear, and sometimes with very disingenuous arguments. They are not as bad as the German Greens, but they don't have a lot to catch up with to be as bad as them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really surprising. So the frustrating thing is that it certainly works in the way that's bad for us. It does seem to work in the way that's good for us. And I think that part of this is because when it works, the average citizen doesn't really notice. You flip the switch, the light came on, what do you care about? So you don't hear a lot of all the benefits that nuclear power has. And I think that's part of our research at Anthropocene. We're trying to measure and quantify, when possible, the effects of all these positive externalities about nuclear. Because I'm a firm believer that the way we have been doing communications is very misguided when we make safety the front and center of our talking points.
Mm-hmm.
I think we need to go past that. If people start asking, of course, that's a conversation that a lot of people are concerned about. Well, really, we should not start there, because nuclear has so many benefits and so much to offer, and could do so much, not only at the climate level, but at many others, that it's a shame that we continue talking to people like 3 Mile Island happened last week.
Yeah. Chris has a question.
Yeah, also a brief comment. We mentioned fuel delivery 18 months for most nuclear plants. Occasionally it's 2 years, but also it doesn't have to be just in time. It can be delivered a month early, a year early, and it can just sit there until needed. So that's a lot of security for the fuel source as well. My question, I just going to ask Guido as we get towards the end here. You do a lot of traveling, talk to a lot of different people. I was curious, what's some of the more unusual or surprising places maybe you've been to in the last few months? And do they understand the topic, or are there still a lot of deep misconceptions that you're trying to correct and bring people along with?
Definitely, and the answer for this one is super easy, and it's definitely Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Okay.
I was there for the African Climate Summit, and the situation in Africa is that people are very curious, because their options are very limited, because sometimes they need to work with international development banks like the World Bank. And until very recently, they did not fund any nuclear-related projects, and they come with all the strings attached about the kind of projects that you can and cannot do. So they are frustrated because they realize they need more electricity than solar and wind alone can provide. They need reliable electricity. And, when storage is expensive, even for us Californians, comparatively, it's a lot more expensive in places in Africa. So yeah, people are curious, slightly skeptical, But I was in a panel on a technical meeting before the actual African summit, and I have been interrupted by this very elderly gentleman from Sudan who is a physicist and at some point worked with JPL, I think. So, summarizing, I am very clearly a foreigner in a culture where respecting your elders is paramount, and with for someone who's watching from the outside, has more credentials than I have to speak about this. And the guy started shouting at me in the middle of my panel, and he's very revered in the community. And I'm thinking, damn, what do I do now? Because I cannot go toe to toe with him. I cannot match his style, his attacks, because again, foreigner, younger, I can't do this culturally. And I'm starting to lose my cool. So fortunately, he starts talking about it cannot be done in Africa. That's my cue. So then I interrupt him and I start talking about me believing in the youth in Africa, that having met a lot of very motivated, very skilled, very inspired young people at that summit, that honestly, they remind me of where I was 20 years ago back in Venezuela, with all these ideas and trying to get out, trying to do something. And my reply was, I believe in African youth. They are as smart as any of the kids in the developing country. They just have less opportunities. I can tell you that because I have been in exactly the same situation. And I know that they can do it. And when I use that angle, and I did become angry because I thought, all my life people have been telling me or thinking or acting in a way that they imply that I cannot be doing this. I shouldn't be doing this because I'm just not good enough. Because maybe my education, I don't come from an Ivy League school. Well, you know what? It was more than plenty, more than enough. And when I shared that experience, I felt the room just changing to the point where 2 days later, when there is the document of technical recommendations that's been set to the African Climate Summit, nuclear is there as a clean source of energy. And I was told that it was specifically because of that intervention in the panel. Mm-hmm. So, yes, that's a story I'm very proud and I'm very happy about. But because it shows you also that nuclear also, despite all the other issues, does have a reputation for complexity. Mm-hmm. And for being a sign that a country has achieved a certain level and status. So a lot of people are not only interested into these projects because of the practicalities, which of course they are interested in those, but also because of the national pride and the professional pride they will feel if one of these projects ends up in their country. And lo and behold, Ethiopia announced that during the meeting that they were going to build a huge nuclear power plant about the size of the generation capacity of their hydroelectric dam. And for me, that was a golden opportunity because I spent all the next day talking and asking questions in panels, congratulating our hosts, the Ethiopians, for understanding the importance of nuclear, and then my question or my intervention. And that was also very cool because I ended up in a couple of panels that were very hostile. But because of that announcement, they were not in a position to be rude or dismissive of Ethiopians aspiring to have nuclear power.
Yeah, and But besides the untapped potential of the youth, there's already nuclear in Africa. Egypt is building it.
Yeah,
South Africa has had it for a long while, and so to me, it just seems natural that it will pop up in other locations in Africa and eventually become commonplace.
there is. Yeah, there is also the non-electricity, non-energy uses of nuclear that there's a lot
Absolutely.
on there. I just found out in Vienna in the latest general conference that the tsetse fly was eradicated in Tanzania using the sterile insect technique.
Excellent.
And in Burkina Faso, they have developed new, much better for the local taste varieties of rice through mutation breeding.
Hmm.
Very old school, but still very effective. So, because of all of those uses, some people are at least familiar with at the policy level making. They're familiar with this, and they are trying to understand better the whole landscape.
Thank you so much. I think we're coming close to about an hour of content, so let's make sure that you tell us anything else that you'd like to promote that we've missed discussing so far. Thank you so much for your international activism, Guido.
Thank you very much. There are two things, and it comes back to youth. I don't know if you saw uh, a recent article in the Wall Street Journal, of all places, talking about not pro-nuclear activists only, but about environmentalists who support nuclear power. I don't know if you saw that one.
Not yet. We haven't covered that. So
Yeah,
I saw a long time ago, I saw a list like that, but not recently.
yeah, and the kind of message that we want to put out there, or at least I want to, it's that the reasons why a lot of people are pro-nuclear is because of preservation of nature, and we are environmentalists, or some of us. And to see that the press is actually starting to get it, that is a part of the battle that we really need, and I'm glad to see it's starting to change. And the article was about a demonstration in front of one of the nuclear power plants that was shut down in Belgium. They had these amazing projections, and they have this cute Instagram video when one of the things that were projecting there was this picture of Freddie Mercury and the words "Don't Stop Me Now." So they had a reel with the Queen song, and that was really cool. They projections are always very spectacular, and when you do them on cooling tower itself, you have a huge canvas, and people start getting curious and interested. And the other thing that I wanted to share with you is that in partnership with our friends of We Planet, the Anthropocene Institute launched a report about the consequences of the nuclear sunset or Atomausstieg in Germany. We had a research paper that only had the numbers from 2015 onwards, but a lot of plants were shut down right in 2011. So we expanded the methodology, and we found that that meant that there were less 800 terawatt hours over from 2011 to 2023 that simply disappeared from German grid. And we found out that means 730 million tons extra and 19,000 dead people, which is about 5 times the amount of dead people that Chernobyl caused. even in the most pessimistic scenario. That's still believable. So being afraid and irrational about nuclear power can be 4 times or 5 times deadlier than Chernobyl.
Thank you, everyone, for your contributions. This has been the Eco-Modernist Channel Live. You can find us right here on YouTube at Eco-Modernist1, at Eco-Modernist1, or the Eco-Modernist Channel. You can also find us on Facebook at the Eco-Modernist Society of North America, or on Patreon. You can please support us there. Look for the Eco-Modernist Channel. And I'm Carl Pauls. I rebroadcast this to many of my personal channels on x.com, Carl Alex Pauls, on LinkedIn, and also on Twitch at Soyaddle or Soyaddle TV, and as well as Kick. I'm on Kick at Soyaddle. Thanks, everyone, for your contributions. Also, please find us online at ESNA.earth. That's ESNA.earth. And remember, emissions first, peace and justice will follow.